How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today we are taking a look at the crypto market and why everything may collapse tomorrow. And this is not some clickbait thing. There's something big that's happening tomorrow, supposedly, that I want to clue you into. There's also a big event Friday that I talked about in one of my last videos, but I want to remind you of that. And something that's happening next week that could be big as well. That might actually really drive the market. Also going to take a look at some of the top news of the day. So if you don't mind hitting the like button and subscribe button, I really appreciate that. While we're on that subject too, just a couple pieces of news here. First, Surtech shares security tips following third Bored Ape Yacht Club security compromise in 6 months. Some hackers stole $250,000 worth of NFTs. There's also another big cryptocurrency STEPN that's under DDoS attacks. This is based on Solana. And that's why I wanted to bring up sponsor FTX. So they allow you to do so many things in one place. I think a lot of people, even veterans, people that can pay for $250,000 worth of NFTs and people that have been around a long time, they still go through these problems where they get hacked or they lose crypto. But when you have everything in one place, it makes it so much simpler. I have friends too that have tried to send crypto to different places. They've just typed in the wrong address. So that's where FTX allows you to do so much, whether it's NFTs, crypto, stocks are coming here soon. They're going to allow you to invest in stocks with stablecoin, and you can, in some platforms, you can get stablecoin yield. So you could go straight from something like sitting in cash that gives you yield to stocks and back and forth. So there are links to this underneath the video. With those links, you get some of the lowest fees out there, and you get bonuses on your investments over $10. So just check out those links underneath the video and let's get into it. So the crypto market is looking a little bit better today than it did yesterday. We're still way lower than we were in the past, $1.27 trillion, up about 3% for the day. So not a bad day at all. Now, the stock market has been trading down pretty much all day. We actually opened up and we're pretty strong, 1.8% up on the day on the NASDAQ, but we've, like I said, been coming down throughout the day. Now, Bitcoin had its first green candle in 9 weeks, or after 9 weeks of red. You can see so many red candles in a row. This was a record for red candles, and then a green candle, and now we're on another green candle, assuming we can finish above about 30,000. Now, the interesting thing is the 200-week moving average is still right around 22,000, 22,300. So this continuously rises, making really the bottom of where we typically hit on a bear market, continuously raising that up. So I do like to see that every week. It is going up a couple $100. Pretty nice to see, in my opinion. Now, if we're looking for bottom indicators, right? One thing that people like to look at is what politicians are doing, specifically Nancy Pelosi and her husband. And they have to say what they're buying. And you can see that they bought a pretty significant amount of Apple and Microsoft just a few weeks ago, back in mid and late May. They bought somewhere around $750,000 of Apple there, another $250,000 to $500,000 here. Then Microsoft, they bought somewhere around $500,000 as well there. If we look at those dates, the first date is the 13th for Apple. Apple was around $142. Now it's up from there. The second date was the 24th, and it's also up from there. Same thing with Microsoft. So they were buying the dip, right? Pretty good timing on those. And they were pretty much buying the bottom. They were just a few days off of the exact bottom for Microsoft and Apple here. So maybe that's a good bottom indicator in and of itself. Now, in terms of what institutions are doing, we saw another week of inflows. This is from CoinShares report. They show a pretty nice size amount of inflows after the last couple of weeks, and most of that is going into Bitcoin. A lot of fleeing to safety. Money's still coming out of Ethereum. We've seen this week after week. It's 9 straight weeks of outflows for Ethereum. You can see not much went to other assets, about 4.3 million in multi-asset, a little bit into Solana, a little bit into the short Bitcoin, a little bit into XRP, and a little bit to other. So 126 million really fleeing to safety in Bitcoin. Now, if we are seeing inflows, why isn't the market just booming, right? If we're seeing institutions buy, and then we're also seeing a lot of retail investors buying the dip, well, we are still seeing a good amount of miners selling. Just over the last couple weeks here, you can see really since about April, we've started to see miners sell, and we hadn't seen this amount of selling for a while. Usually they sell into strength. When we see a massive run, right, they sell back in 2021, when we saw a pretty big rally from about 10K up to 60, they were selling a decent amount there, then holding on as we dipped. You can see though that they have kind of tilted a little bit more bearish recently. We do have a couple big things coming up. Maybe they're just selling ahead of these things. One of the largest pieces of crypto legislation will be introduced tomorrow. It includes definitions of which coins are commodities, coins considered securities, stablecoin CBDC framework, and NFT direction. Now, this has been worked on by a bunch of different people, and it's mostly Bitcoin maxis. So if you have a lot of Bitcoin, that's good. Michael Saylor's worked on it. Senator Kathy Loomis, Ted Cruz has worked on it. This is going to be interesting because they basically have said that you can burn down the altcoins and Bitcoin will rise from the ashes. And I think really after the Luna collapse, it's going to be even more harsh on altcoins because we just saw $50 billion of investor money just, burned away. And I think that really will help the case for people to push towards more legislation. Now, I think usually legislation in this way is good, at least for Bitcoin. I think it will provide more clarity and will probably show that a lot of these other altcoins are securities and should be treated as such, and they'll be more regulated. So I think we do have to pay attention to this. It'll probably make the Bitcoin dominance go up even further. If I had to guess 50-50, I would say that there's a more than 50% chance that some of these other altcoins will bleed due to the wording of this bill. Now, of course, who knows whether this actually goes through or anything, but I think it will be interesting to see. I think Bitcoin and Ethereum also will probably come away as winners, while a lot of these other cryptocurrencies will probably bleed against those two, just because most cryptocurrencies are securities, right? You invest in them not for utility as much as you think that you're going to make a return over time. That's why we invest, right? We invest in crypto. We don't use crypto, a lot of us. Now, we do have a big event happening Friday as well. So not just Tuesday, but Friday as well. We have the CPI data. I covered this yesterday, so I won't talk about it too much. Just know that this is on the way, so you have to pay attention because some people are actually holding their investments until Friday. They're not going to invest, or they're stopping their DCA until Friday because they want to see what the CPI data comes out as. And then right after that, really next week, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we have the Fed meeting. So it will be interesting to see what they say, what their statement is coming out of that. If we have 2 months of down inflation, if they're saying, hey, we're going to reassess in a couple months after the next couple meetings, we're going to reassess whether we need to continue with rate hikes. And depending on the wording, it might be quite bullish for the overall market next week. Now, let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. I'm going to keep it nice and short here for you today. I think there is a lot of big news that's going to be happening over the next week and a half. So just have your tap dancing shoes on. Be kind of plugged in. I think over the next couple weeks, I think you want to pay attention because this could be the first shift in the market. And I think whether you're looking at the bottom indicators or whether you're just looking at the fact that usually we price things in ahead of time, the markets like to know what's going to happen 4, 5, 6 months down the line, and they start pricing that in early because they don't want to be too late. I think there are a lot of things that are showing that maybe we're at that inflection point where things start to look better over the next couple months, and the market maybe rebounds or starts to rebound sometime over the next few months. So it will be something to pay attention to. I keep on thinking too that it's earlier in the year than it is. We are, a week into June right now. So if people expect the market to start turning up in September or the Fed to change in September, we're not too far away from that point right now. Let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Again, check out FTX. I think it's a great way to save money on a lot of fees, do a lot of things in one place. They're really user friendly and they'll give you free crypto with those links. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.